Imagine getting your arm frozen solid, then someone smacks it with a stick to see if it cracks like an icicle. Yeah, that actually happened. And believe me, it's not the worst thing Unit 731 came up with. If you think you've heard of terrifying human experiments, hold on tight. This is about to get way darker than any horror movies you've ever seen. Buckle up because we are about to dive into 10 of the most terrifying experiments they conducted. And trust me, this is going to get dark, like really dark. But as always, welcome back to our channel, where we turn history into the wildest trip you've ever been on. Literally. Today, we are going to talk about the most terrifying experiments that happened on Unit 731. But before we jump into the terrifying details, let me give you some background about them. Unit 731 was a covert biological and chemical warfare research unit of the Imperial Japanese Army during World War II. It was officially called the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department, which sounds pretty innocent until you realize that what they were actually doing was creating weapons of mass death. And why the name 731? Simple. Unit 731 was a part of a larger program under Japan's Kwangtung Army, and it was named after this code designation. For almost a decade, Unit 731 conducted some of the most brutal and inhuman experiments on living humans, mainly prisoners of war and Chinese civilians under the guise of scientific research. Now that you know who they were, let's dive into the top 10 most terrifying experiments they performed, starting with the one of the worst in my opinion. Experiment number 1. Amputation and reattachment. Limbs as puzzle pieces. What happens when you amputate someone's limb and try to reattach it into another part of their body? Unit 731 was very curious about that. So naturally, they would amputate limbs from prisoners and then try to reattach them in different ways. Arms to legs, legs to arms, and sometimes even limbs swapped between two different bodies. They weren't doing this to try save lives or make medical advances. They were just experimenting with how far the human body could go before it gave out. Oh, and the victims weren't anesthetized for any of this. Yep, they were fully awake for the process. Imagine watching someone amputate your arm only to have them to try to stitch it onto your leg, all while you're still conscious. Think of this like a twisted version of Mr. Potato Head, except instead of swapping plastic arms, they're chopping off limbs and trying to stitch them in places they don't belong. Trust me, this is not the kind of puzzle you want to be part of. Experiment number 2. Frostbite Experiments. Frozen alive. Ever wondered what it feels like to have your arms frozen solid like an actual ice cube? No? Well, Unit 731 wanted to find out. They conducted brutal frostbite experiments to study how cold affects the human body. But here's how they did it. They would force prisoners to stick their limbs in an ice-cold water or leave them exposed to freezing temperatures outside until their legs or arms froze solid. Then, for fun, or maybe to see if they could reverse the damage, they would hit the frozen limbs with sticks to hear the sound of ice cracking. That's right, frozen arms that snapped like icicles. The prisoners wouldn't die immediately, but they sure wish they had. Eventually, they would either suffer from massive tissue damage or infection. But of course, they weren't done with you yet. Imagine having your arms turned into popsicle only to have someone whack it with a stick just to see what happens. I mean, almost the same when you accidentally leave a soda in the freezer for too long, but you know, way more painful. Yeah, that's some next level torture. Terrifying disease number 3. The plague bomb. Weaponizing disease. As if disease like the plague weren't terrifying enough on their own, Unit 731 decided to turn them into weapons. They created plague bomb, literally bombs filled with fleas carrying the plague. They would drop these bombs on Chinese villages and then study how fast the plague spread. Picture this, you're living in a small village, minding your own business, and suddenly planes are dropping bombs. But instead of explosives, it's a swarm of plague-infected fleas. These experiments killed tens of thousands of civilians, all in the name of research. They didn't just study how fast people died from the plague, they wanted to know how long it took the entire village to get wiped out. Spoiler alert, it didn't take long. Imagine you're just chilling at home, enjoying a nice cup of tea, and then suddenly you hear planes overhead. You think, oh no, bombs! But instead of explosions, it's fleas! That's right, fleas. And not just any fleas, plague-infected fleas. That's some serious nightmare fuel. It's like nature's worst confetti party, except everyone is invited to die. Terrifying experiment number 4. Water torture. Forcing water into the lungs. Here is another horrifying experiment. Unit 731 would tie down prisoners and force-feed them insane amount of water, so much that their stomachs would swell and burst. But wait, it gets worse. After force-feeding them, they would then slice open the prisoners to see the effect of extreme water intake. They didn't stop at the stomach either. Sometimes, they would force water into the lungs to see how much liquid a person could take before they drowned. And we are not talking about a quick death here. These prisoners were forced to endure hours of slow suffocation, gasping for air as their lungs filled with water, with the doctors standing by, taking notes like it was just another day at the office. Terrifying experiment number 5. Pressure chambers. Explosive deaths. Ever had that feeling that your head's going to explode from too much pressure? Yeah, Unit 731 took that way too literally. They kind of turned people into human balloon animals, except, spoiler alert, these balloons popped. Unit 731 liked to see how much pressure the human body could take before it literally exploded. They would place prisoners in pressure chambers and slowly increase the atmospheric pressure until the person's body could no longer handle it. Want to know what happens when the pressure gets too high? Your eyes bulge out of your skull, your lungs collapse, and if they keep going, your entire body bursts. The scientists at Unit 731 watched this happen repeatedly, scribbling notes about the exact pressure level needed for someone to pop like a balloon. Imagine being locked in a chamber, feeling the pressure build up, knowing that soon your body is going to give out in the most gruesome way possible. That's a death no one deserves, huh? Guys, I owe you an apology for not completing this video for this week. I became sick to a point that I had to stay in bed for the past 5 days. But I will come back next week with even more terrifying experiments. So up until then, ciao.